Sugar, lean in. Olivia Harper just stumbled onto a secret her husband thought she'd never find, and it's about to blow up right in her kitchen. But across the ocean, another secret is waiting, and when it hits, nothing will ever be the same. Olivia Harper stared at the small stack of envelopes on the kitchen counter, her hands trembling slightly. For weeks, she had sensed a shift in her husband Ethan's behavior. The late-night calls, the whispered conversations in the hallway, and the faint scent of a perfume that wasn't hers had built into an undeniable truth. Something was going on behind her back. The realization made her stomach churn. But Olivia wasn't the type to be caught off guard. She had always been careful, meticulous and disciplined, but even she hadn't anticipated the web of deceit that was quietly unraveling her life. Ethan had always presented himself as the perfect husband, charismatic, charming, and endlessly persuasive. Yet beneath that polished exterior, Olivia now saw cracks, a hunger for admiration, for control, and for a life that didn't include her. It had begun subtly. A missed dinner here, an unexplained business trip there. But now, the evidence was irrefutable. Olivia had found receipts for extravagant gifts, hidden hotel bookings, and a message on a phone that was supposed to be off limits. Her heart pounded as she pieced the puzzle together. Ethan wasn't just having an affair, he was planning something calculated, something public. The thought made her shiver. She imagined the grand anniversary celebration Ethan had been hinting at. 100 guests, speeches, appearances, and the opportunity to humiliate her in front of everyone she knew. The irony of it all was bitter. He thought he was clever, but Olivia had been watching every move. She wasn't naive, and then, almost as if the universe were giving her a lifeline, a letter arrived from Germany. Her late Aunt Josephine, her father's elder sister, had passed away, leaving Olivia as the sole heir of her considerable estate. A Munich condo valued at $800,000, a bank account with $570,000, and another luxury condo in Miami Beach. The total inheritance exceeded $3 million. Olivia read the lines again and again, letting the weight of the news sink in. For the first time in years, Olivia felt a surge of hope. She had a secret advantage, financial independence, something Ethan could never anticipate. Her mind raced with possibilities. She could protect herself, take control, and ensure that no one would ever see her as powerless again. Olivia picked up her laptop and began researching, formulating a plan to secure her inheritance and ensure her freedom. This wasn't revenge, it was survival. And for the first time in a long time, she felt strong, but little did she know. The anniversary was approaching faster than she thought, and Ethan was more confident than ever that he held all the cards. Tomorrow, Olivia's life was about to change, but would it be in the way she imagined, or in a way that would completely astonish everyone? Olivia has the secret to reclaiming her life, but the real challenge is yet to come. Will she strike before Ethan does us? Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. Olivia dressed carefully, choosing a soft gray suit that projected confidence without arrogance. She carried a small folder in her bag, one that contained the inheritance documents that could change everything. Today wasn't about confrontation, it was about preparation. She needed legal confirmation that her assets were hers alone, untouched by any marital claims. She made her way to the office of Mr. Jameson, a seasoned real estate attorney who had assisted her family years ago. His office smelled faintly of leather and old books, a comforting mix of stability and authority. "Olivia Harper," he greeted warmly. "How long has it been? And how is Mr. Ethan?" She smiled faintly, keeping her voice calm. "I need your help, Jameson, and it must be confidential." She slid the folder across the polished desk. "I've inherited property overseas, and I want to ensure everything is legally mine. Also, there's the Georgetown condo purchased by my parents before Ethan was on the deed. I want documentation, confirming it's a premarital asset." Mr. Jameson raised an eyebrow and opened the folder. After a careful review, he nodded. "Everything seems in order. The Georgetown property is indeed premarital. In case of divorce, Ethan would only have a claim if he contributed significantly to improvements, which, as I see here, he didn't. I can draft a confirming statement for you," Olivia felt a wave of relief. She had been meticulous, every base covered, every possibility accounted for. She wasn't just reacting. She was planning, strategizing, and reclaiming her independence. By afternoon, she had opened a personal bank account, transferred a portion of the inheritance into it, and even set up an account in euros for her overseas funds. The sense of freedom was intoxicating. For the first time in years, Olivia wasn't reliant on Ethan or anyone else. She was in control. Returning home, she overheard a voice on the phone. Ethan, speaking with someone in hushed tones, was describing his perfect plan for their anniversary celebration. He spoke of a grand ballroom, 100 guests, and a speech that would force Olivia into submission. Each word he uttered, each gleaming detail, made her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with resolve. Later, as she sorted through some of Ethan's discarded clothes, a crumpled card fell from a jacket pocket. Mr. Harlan, family lawyer, divorce, property, alimony. Olivia smiled faintly. So they were ready, thinking they had planned every step, but they had underestimated her. She now held both the financial and legal upper hand, and she intended to use it. That night, she laid out all the documents on the table, reviewing them once more. Munich condo, Miami Beach property, cash accounts, Georgetown condo confirmation, everything was in place. Tomorrow the anniversary would unfold. But the script she had prepared in her mind was nothing like the one Ethan thought he had written. Olivia closed her eyes for a moment, imagining the ballroom, the crowd, and the moment of revelation. A smile tugged at her lips. The game wasn't over, it had just begun. And this time she held all the cards. Tomorrow, Ethan believes he will humiliate Olivia. But little does he know, the tables are about to turn completely. The next morning, Ethan woke with a sense of excitement he hadn't felt in months. Today is the day, he muttered to himself, adjusting his tie in front of the mirror. He imagined the shocked faces, the whispers, and the way Olivia would finally appear small before the crowd. He didn't notice the tight line of her jaw or the calm, fire in her eyes as she dressed for the evening. Olivia had chosen a deep emerald gown, elegant but understated. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, the folder of documents hidden in her clutch like a secret weapon. The drive to the Waterford Hotel was silent. Ethan tapped his fingers on the steering wheel nervously, while Olivia stared at the city lights, remembering a time long ago when their car rides had been filled with hope and laughter. Now it was a quiet prelude to a confrontation. At the hotel, the ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and pristine white tablecloths. 100 guests were seated, chatting politely, unaware that they were about to witness a drama far beyond the usual anniversary toast. Olivia's colleagues complimented her attire, unaware of the tension simmering beneath her calm exterior. In one corner, Ethan's mother, Victoria, whispered reassurances to him. Nearby, a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, Ethan's mistress. Claire was already being introduced as his new marketing assistant. Ethan rose to make his speech. The microphone felt heavy in his hand, but he was confident. "Friends, thank you for joining us on this special day," he began, forcing a smile. 25 years ago, I made a choice that seemed right. But life has taught me clarity comes slowly. I've realized that my marriage was built on the wrong foundation, and for the first time, I am choosing honesty. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Olivia's heart beat steadily. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times. Now it was time to act, as Ethan continued, describing their marriage as dull and mismatched. Olivia quietly rose and stepped forward. Her voice was soft but carried through the room. "Ethan," she said, taking the microphone with a serene smile, "thank you for your honesty. It seems we have both been preparing speeches, but there's something you didn't account for." She opened her clutch and revealed the folder. "The Georgetown condo is my premarital property. The inheritance I received from my late aunt in Germany includes 2 luxury condos and over $1 million in cash, all legally mine. Your plans to humiliate me failed before they even began." The room went silent. Claire's face turned pale. Victoria clutched her pearls in shock. Ethan's confident posture faltered as he stared at the folder. Murmurs rose around the ballroom, and Olivia allowed herself a small, victorious smile. Ethan thought he had orchestrated the perfect public humiliation, but Olivia's revelation is about to send his entire world crashing. Down on the silence that fell over the ballroom was deafening. Guests exchanged confused glances, trying to process the sudden reversal of events. Claire, Ethan's mistress, clutched her designer bag as her eyes darted around, realizing that the luxury lifestyle she had imagined was slipping away. Victoria, Ethan's mother, stood frozen, mouth slightly open, her triumph evaporating in the blink of an eye. Ethan's face went pale. "Olivia, that's impossible," he stammered, his voice cracking. He tried to regain control, but the room was no longer his stage. Murmurs of disbelief spread through the crowd. Did he really plan to humiliate her in front of everyone? Someone whispered. Another added, and all for what? His mistress? Olivia held the microphone with steady hands. "Ethan, you've spent $45,000 of our joint savings trying to create a spectacle to embarrass me publicly. And for what? To make a young woman think she could take over my life. That ends tonight." Her calm declaration cut through the murmurs, commanding attention. Claire's jaw tightened, realizing she was nothing more than a pawn in a scheme that had already collapsed. Ethan tried to speak, to explain, to regain his dominance. But his words stumbled over each other. I can fix this. We can talk later," he pleaded. Olivia's eyes narrowed slightly. "No, Ethan, this conversation is over. The truth doesn't need private rooms or secret whispers. It needs to be seen." Tonight, as she spoke, the guests began to connect the dots. Someone pulled out a phone, recording the unfolding drama. Others whispered, shocked, as Victoria stepped forward to plead with Olivia, but the words faltered on her lips. Claire finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Ethan, what about the condo? The money you promised me?" The room now buzzed with anticipation. Olivia looked at Claire, a faint smile on her lips. "You were never going to get any of it," Olivia said gently but firmly. "The inheritance was never yours to touch, and the condo was never up for negotiation. Your new life was built on lies." Claire's face turned a ghostly white. The guests now watched Ethan, desperate and trapped. We can work this out," he said weakly. But nobody was listening. Olivia finally set the microphone down and began to leave the ballroom. Behind her, chaos erupted. Voices shouted, accusations flew, and the crowd's sympathy swung entirely in Olivia's favor. Ethan stumbled backward, disoriented, realizing his entire carefully constructed plan had failed. Claire followed, furious and humiliated, while Victoria stood in stunned silence. Outside, the cool night air greeted Olivia as she stepped into a waiting car. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with exhilaration. Freedom, independence, and justice all felt real in that moment. She looked back once at the sparkling ballroom, now a scene of Ethan's collapse, and smiled. Ethan thought he had orchestrated the perfect revenge, but the night's chaos is just the beginning of his downfall. And Olivia's real freedom is about to change everything. The taxi's engine hummed softly as Olivia leaned back in her seat, her thoughts racing yet calm. For the first time in decades, she felt a strange mix of relief and exhilaration. The documents safely tucked in her purse, titles to the 3 properties, bank statements confirming her inheritance, were more than paper. They were freedom, independence, and the assurance that she would never be manipulated or humiliated again. Meanwhile, Ethan was left behind in the ballroom, his mouth dry, his mind spinning. His meticulously planned humiliation had backfired spectacularly. The crowd, once compliant witnesses to his scheme, had turned against him. Guests whispered, some recording on their phones, and others openly condemned his behavior. The viral potential of this event wasn't lost on him. He had unintentionally created a scandal that could follow him for years. Olivia's phone buzzed with messages from colleagues and friends. Every single one was supportive, praising her courage and her composure under pressure. "You were incredible tonight," one message read. Another said, "Finally justice served. You're an inspiration." Olivia smiled quietly. She had not sought revenge, not really, but the satisfaction of reclaiming her life was undeniable. 3 months later, Olivia sat in the sleek living room of her Miami Beach condo, sipping tea while gazing at the ocean. The sun glinted off the waves, and the gentle hum of the city in the distance felt like a lullaby. With her inheritance, she had transformed her life. She no longer depended on anyone. Her publishing house, specializing in translations of European literature, was small but thriving. Each book she published reflected her own values: honesty, quality, and passion. Meanwhile, Ethan's life had taken a steep downward spiral. Losing his wife was only the beginning. His attempts to leverage the anniversary scandal to save his reputation failed. The video of the event went viral, and the CEO of his company no longer wanted him anywhere near the organization. Job interviews became humiliating exercises in judgment. By the time he settled for a modest job as a taxi driver, driving his old Toyota Camry, his ego and pride were completely shattered. He had lost his house, his mistress, and any respect he once had, commanded. Victoria, his mother, faced her own reckoning. The lavish downtown mansion she had once prided herself on became unaffordable. She sold it and moved into a modest apartment on the city's outskirts. The dreams of status and luxury that she had envisioned with her son crumbled alongside Ethan's. Failures, Olivia, on the other hand, experienced a newfound serenity. She walked through her Miami condo, now filled with light and books, not schemes and deceit. Her employees, young and talented translators, admired her not just for her wealth, but for her strength, her dignity, and the way she had reclaimed her life. For the first time, Olivia felt the kind of independence and self-respect she had longed for. But as Olivia begins to rebuild her life, Ethan isn't finished yet. Will he find a way to challenge her newfound freedom, or is the end of their story truly final? The next chapter is about to unfold. The next morning, Olivia woke up before dawn. The Miami sun had just begun to stretch its golden fingers across the ocean, casting a soft glow over the condo. She sipped her coffee on the terrace, inhaling the salty air, feeling the weight of the past finally lift from her shoulders. The quiet was almost surreal after the chaos of the anniversary scandal. She felt a strange mix of peace and cautious anticipation. Life, she realized, was hers to shape now. No schemes, no betrayals, just choices and freedom. But life had a way of keeping her on her toes. Just as Olivia was reviewing plans for a new book translation, her phone vibrated. An unknown number flashed on the screen. She hesitated, then answered cautiously. "Hello?" A voice on the other end, deep and tense, said, "Olivia, it's me, Ethan." Her heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from curiosity. She had not expected him to reach out, especially not now. "What do you want?" she asked, calm but wary. I need to see you," he stammered. "It's important, please." Olivia considered hanging up, but something inside her, a mix of empathy and curiosity, made her agree. 30 minutes. "At the cafe on Ocean Avenue," she said firmly. When Olivia arrived, Ethan was already there, sitting stiffly in a corner booth. Looking older, wearier, and defeated, his once confident aura had vanished. The expensive suit was gone, replaced with a cheap shirt and worn jeans. His hair had begun to gray at the temples. For the first time, Olivia saw vulnerability instead of arrogance. "I didn't come to argue," Ethan said quietly as she sat down. I wanted to explain. I made mistakes, big ones. I thought I could control everything, but I was wrong. About you, about our life, about everything." Olivia listened, sipping her coffee, her expression calm. There was no anger, only a measured curiosity. "And why should I care?" she asked softly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he replied, his eyes sincere. "I just want you to know, I see now what I lost. You were honest, strong, and brave. I was selfish. I took everything for granted. You deserved better than me." Olivia nodded slowly, appreciating his honesty. She didn't need closure. From him, she had already reclaimed her life. But she allowed him this moment, outside. The city moved on, oblivious to the quiet reconciliation of two lives once intertwined. Olivia realized that her victory was not just about wealth or justice. It was about reclaiming her dignity, asserting her independence, and choosing her own path. Ethan, she saw, had his lesson to learn the hard way. As she left the cafe, Olivia felt the ocean breeze fill her lungs. Every decision, every action, every risk she had taken to protect herself had been worth it. She was finally free in every sense of the word. But even as Olivia embraced her new life, a shadow from her aunt's past inheritance surfaced, a secret she hadn't uncovered yet. Could this revelation change everything she had built? The next chapter promises unexpected twists. Olivia returned to her Miami Beach condo, the sunlight sparkling across the waves, her mind racing with plans for her publishing house. The inheritance had given her financial freedom, but it also came with responsibility, one she hadn't fully realized until now. She opened the safe and spread out the documents once more. The Munich condo deed, the Miami Beach condo papers, And the bank statements. Everything was hers, clear and undisputed. Yet a folded, yellowed envelope at the bottom caught her eye, something she hadn't opened. The day she received the inheritance. Curious, Olivia carefully unfolded the envelope. Inside was a single typed letter in German, with a note from the notary. Attention. Please review the attached clause in your Aunt Josephine's will. Certain conditions apply to the Miami Beach property transfer. Her pulse quickened. Conditions? She hadn't heard of any conditions when she formalized the inheritance at the consulate. She scanned the document. It stated that, while ownership had legally passed to her, the Miami Beach condo came with a binding clause. If Olivia ever sold the property within 10 years, a portion of the proceeds must revert to an undisclosed family trust in Germany. She frowned. Why hadn't this been mentioned before? Why had her aunt left such a stipulation hidden in the final will? Olivia felt the first twinge of concern in weeks. Her freedom was immense. But the clause hinted at secrets she hadn't yet uncovered. Her phone buzzed. Again. This time a message from her lawyer. Aisha. Olivia, I went through the inheritance papers. Everything looks solid, but there's one thing. We might need to verify the trust clause in Germany. Could complicate future transactions. Olivia sighed. She had fought so hard for independence, and now it seemed the fight wasn't entirely over. But she knew she wasn't afraid. Determined, she booked a flight to Munich. She would meet with the German trustee and understand the terms fully. This was her life, and she wasn't going to let an overlooked clause dictate her path. As she packed, she glanced around the condo, imagining her publishing house thriving here, her new life unfolding exactly as she had dreamed. That evening, Olivia relaxed on her terrace, sipping chamomile tea, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The city's lights twinkled like stars scattered across the land. She allowed herself a small smile. For the first time in 25 years, she was truly in control of her destiny. Yet deep inside, a nagging thought lingered. What else had Aunt Josephine hidden in her meticulous planning? Olivia had learned to expect surprises. But this felt different, more deliberate, more personal. As she closed her eyes, she imagined the court battle with Darren behind her, the chaos of the anniversary party fading, and a future in which she was fully free. But the inheritance had another story, a secret waiting to reveal itself. The next morning, Olivia would discover a letter that not only changed her understanding of her aunt's wealth but hinted at a rival she never expected. Someone determined to stake a claim on her freedom. Could she protect everything she had fought for? The flight to Munich was long, but Olivia barely noticed the hours passing. Her mind raced with possibilities. Who could challenge her claim to her aunt's inheritance? She had anticipated Darren and his schemes, but a rival from Germany? That was new. As the plane descended, the city sprawled beneath her like a labyrinth of history and secrets. Olivia's heart beat faster, a mix of excitement and anxiety. At the airport, she met Herr Klein, the German trustee her aunt had mentioned in the letter. An older man with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. He greeted her politely, gesturing to a quiet office. Mrs. Carter, your aunt was meticulous. There is one clause most people overlook, and it has relevance for the Miami Beach property, he began, sliding a folder across the desk. Olivia opened it, scanning the documents. The clause was far more complex than she had expected. The Miami Beach condo was fully hers, yes, but if she ever sold it before a decade had passed, a portion of the proceeds, approximately 5%, would automatically transfer to a distant cousin she had never met, Lucas Reinhardt. Olivia blinked. A cousin she had never known, living somewhere in Germany, now had a potential legal claim on part of her wealth. She felt a spark of irritation mixed with curiosity. Herr Klein noticed her expression. Don't worry, Mrs. Carter, this does not mean immediate action. Lucas would need to assert his claim formally, and there's a process. But it explains why your aunt included the clause. It ensures her estate remains in the family if certain conditions are met. Olivia nodded slowly, trying to anticipate the implications. She had thought the inheritance was a clean slate, a fresh start. Now there was another player she hadn't considered. Determined not to let this distract her, Olivia requested a formal introduction to Lucas. A week later, she found herself at a cafe in central Munich, Lucas Reinhardt sitting across from her. He was about her age, with a composed demeanor and calculating eyes. Olivia Carter, he said smoothly. I presume you know why I'm here. Yes, she replied, holding his gaze. I also know that this clause was your aunt's idea, not mine. I respect her wishes, but this is my inheritance, my freedom. I intend to honor her, carefully, without letting anyone manipulate me. Lucas smirked faintly. We'll see about that. Aunt Josephine's plan was clever. Perhaps you'll find that I am more determined than you expect. Olivia stood, calm but resolute. She had faced Darren and his mother, navigated betrayal, and emerged victorious. A distant cousin with a legal claim was a challenge, but she wasn't afraid. I don't intend to fight you, Lucas, but make no mistake. What is rightfully mine will remain mine. As she left the cafe, the crisp Munich air filled her lungs. A storm was coming, a test of her resolve and strategy. Her freedom, her properties, her dreams, everything she had fought for, could be threatened once more. And this time it was a challenge she hadn't anticipated. Olivia returned to Miami, unaware that Lucas had already taken the first step to assert his claim. By the time she realized it, a shocking legal twist would put everything she valued at risk. Back in Miami, Olivia felt a fleeting sense of peace as she walked into her aunt's luxury condo. The ocean breeze swept through the open balcony doors, the sunlight glinting off polished surfaces. Everything looked perfect, the way she had imagined her life after Darren's betrayal, but her mind couldn't shake the encounter in Munich. Lucas Reinhardt was calm, composed, and unnervingly confident. That smirk haunted her. She dropped her bags and immediately set to work organizing the condo, ensuring everything was secure. She had learned the hard way that appearances were often deceptive. Money, property, and freedom, they were only as safe as the plans protecting them. Olivia pulled out her laptop and began reviewing the inheritance documents again. Every clause, every footnote, and every legal exception needed to be understood fully. She couldn't afford to leave anything to chance. Meanwhile, Lucas was already making subtle moves. Across the Atlantic, he had contacted a German lawyer, presenting his potential claim on the Miami Beach condo. Nothing public was far from over. Just procedural groundwork. Olivia had no idea yet, but her cousin was quietly preparing a challenge that could turn her world upside down. It was the kind of calculated, patient strategy she had always respected in others, but she was determined not to let it work against her. Later that evening, Olivia called her friend and attorney Maya. Maya, I need you to review these documents immediately, she said, sending digital copies. There's a clause I never anticipated. It involves a distant relative and the Miami property. Maya's reply was swift. Olivia, this is tricky. You've inherited a fortune, yes, but this clause could give Lucas leverage. We need to craft a strategy that ensures your rights are legally unassailable. As Olivia pondered her next steps, she received a notification on her phone. A small package had arrived from Germany. Curious, she opened it to find an antique letter opener and a note. For the battles to come. Use wisely. J. Her pulse quickened. Someone was testing her. Someone knew her, or at least knew her aunt's legacy well. It was a small gesture, almost cryptic, but it reminded her that the game of inheritance. Determined, Olivia made a list of priorities. Secure the properties, verify bank accounts, protect her cash, and most importantly, understand Lucas's potential moves. The Miami Beach condo was not just an asset. It was her sanctuary. A place where she could rebuild her life. She wasn't going to let a distant relative take that away. Not without a fight. As night fell over the city, Olivia sat on the balcony, gazing at the lights reflecting on the water. She could feel the tension in the air, the invisible threads of a legal battle forming. Somewhere in Germany, Lucas was already planning his approach. And somewhere nearby, Olivia knew there were more secrets yet to be revealed. Secrets that could change everything, little. Did Olivia know the first move Lucas would make wouldn't just threaten her inheritance? It would put her entire future in jeopardy. The next morning, Olivia woke to the sound of waves crashing against the shore. The Miami sun glinted off the water, but her mind wasn't on the beach. It was on the envelope she had received overnight. The return address was German, but there was no signature, just a single line typed across the top. Consider this your first warning. Inside was a copy of a legal notice from a law firm in Munich. Lucas Reinhardt had initiated a preliminary inquiry into Aunt Josephine's estate. Olivia felt a surge of anger, but she knew panic wouldn't help. She immediately called Maya. "It started," she said calmly, showing her the documents. "Lucas is moving faster than I anticipated." Maya's voice was firm. "Olivia, slow down. The inquiry is procedural. It doesn't mean he owns anything, but we need to prepare for a full challenge. He's looking for any loophole he can exploit." By noon, Olivia was in her home office, surrounded by her aunt's documents, spreadsheets, and bank statements. Every asset, every property, every penny needed verification. The Miami condo, the Munich apartment, and even the cash in the German account. All of it had to be airtight. She noticed something in the fine print of her aunt's will that Lucas might exploit. A clause requiring notarized consent from all living relatives for international asset transfers. Olivia's pulse quickened. If he filed quickly, he could temporarily freeze her access to the funds. Determined, she emailed her German lawyer, Herr Kruger, instructing him to secure emergency authorization to protect the inheritance. "We need this locked down today," she typed. "No one should be able to touch these accounts until we have clarity." While waiting for confirmation, Olivia turned her attention to her Miami Beach condo. She walked through every room, checking locks, security systems, and surveillance cameras. She had learned the hard way that wealth without vigilance was vulnerable. Even as Olivia worked, Lucas was already acting on his end. Across the ocean, he had quietly contacted local banks and legal advisors, planting seeds of doubt about her control over the inheritance. His tone was polite but firm. He framed it as concern for procedural accuracy. He was subtle, precise, and unrelenting, the kind of adversary that could make even the most prepared person second-guess themselves. By late afternoon, Olivia received confirmation from Herr Kruger. All assets were temporarily frozen in her name until formal validation of her aunt's will could be completed, but the freezing was only a safeguard. Lucas could challenge her, but legally, she was still the rightful heir. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. She knew this was just the beginning. Every day, every email, and every phone call could trigger a new complication. As the sun dipped, below the horizon, Olivia stood on her balcony, the wind whipping her hair. The ocean shimmered like a battlefield beneath her. The inheritance was hers, but Lucas's first strike had proven that her freedom and wealth could not be taken for granted. She tightened her grip on the railing and whispered to herself, "Let's see who wins this game." Lucas thought he had launched the perfect attack, but Olivia had a secret backup plan that he could never anticipate. The next morning, Olivia woke to an inbox flooded with updates from Herr Kruger and her Miami-based attorney, Emily. Lucas Reinhardt had wasted no time. He had sent another formal request, citing procedural irregularities and questioning the authenticity of some minor signatures in her aunt's documents. Olivia skimmed the emails, her brow furrowed, then leaned back in her chair and let out a soft laugh. Lucas thought he was clever, but he had underestimated her. Olivia had already anticipated such moves. Weeks ago, before any of this drama had begun, she had digitized all of Aunt Josephine's files and prepared notarized, internationally recognized backups. Every bank statement, every property deed, every minor signature anomaly, everything had been corrected, verified and sealed by legal authorities. Lucas had no ground to stand on. The question was whether he would recognize that before he escalated further. She picked up her phone and dialed Emily. "It's time we show Lucas that we're not playing," Olivia said calmly. Emily chuckled. "Finally, he's been trying to corner you for weeks. Let's hit him where it hurts." By midday, the first countermeasure was in place. Formal notices had been sent to all banks involved, officially confirming Olivia's full authority over the inheritance. Simultaneously, a letter went to Lucas personally, emphasizing that any further attempts to interfere with the estate would be treated as harassment under both U.S. and German law. While the legal battle was unfolding, Olivia didn't stop preparing on her personal front. She returned to the Miami Beach condo and began turning it into her sanctuary. She redecorated, choosing light, airy colors, and filled it with books, art, and photographs from her travels. Every room reminded her of freedom, independence, and self-reliance. The very things Lucas had tried to undermine. By evening, Lucas made his next move. Through a network of German contacts, he attempted to block the transfer of a large sum of cash into Olivia's account. citing a minor technical error in the international banking paperwork. When Emily called Olivia to report it, Olivia's grin was unstoppable. "Good," she said. "Now he's showing his desperation. Let him make mistakes. Every move he makes leads with a trail." Over the following hours, Olivia drafted her next step, a strategic public-facing announcement that would cement her rights. It wasn't about showing off wealth. It was about transparency. The news would go out to German authorities, her family, and a small network of legal contacts. Everything she owned, every asset was fully documented and under her control. There would be no ambiguity, no loopholes, and no chance for Lucas to claim anything. As night fell over the city, Olivia stood on the balcony, overlooking the calm ocean. The lights of Miami twinkled like stars on the water. Lucas's first strike had failed, but she knew better than to underestimate him. He would not stop, and neither would she. Olivia sipped her tea and whispered to herself, "He's about to learn the hard way that you can't manipulate a woman who knows her worth." Lucas thought he could corner her. But Olivia had one final move that could turn the entire game upside down. The following weeks passed with Olivia steadily asserting her independence. Lucas made one last desperate attempt through German legal channels, but every move he tried was countered swiftly and decisively. Olivia's attorney, Emily, ensured all documentation was airtight, and the German notary confirmed every property transfer beyond dispute. The inheritance was fully hers, and Lucas's claims were dismissed. He finally realized he had no power over her. Not a single asset, not a single opportunity to manipulate her life. With her financial independence secure, Olivia turned her attention to her true passion. She opened her small publishing house specializing in translations of European literature, a dream she had harbored for decades. The Miami Beach condo became her office, studio and sanctuary filled with sunlight, books, and inspiration. She hired a small, talented team and began publishing works that delighted niche readers who appreciated fine literature. Each day brought a sense of fulfillment she hadn't known in years. Socially, Olivia became a quiet but powerful presence. The story of her triumph over deceit and manipulation spread subtly through her network and social media. Unlike Darren and Lucas, Olivia didn't need to flaunt her victory. Her independence, confidence, and poise spoke louder than any public spectacle ever could. The viral video of the anniversary confrontation had already cemented the lesson. Deceit and arrogance always meet consequences. Occasionally, Olivia received letters or emails from people inspired by her story. They thanked her for showing that one could reclaim control over life, finances, and dignity. She read them with a smile, reflecting on how much she had grown. There was no anger left for Darren or his cohorts, no bitterness for what had been lost, only gratitude for what she had gained. Freedom, self-respect, and the ability to define her own future. One quiet evening, Olivia stood on her balcony overlooking the ocean, a cup of tea in her hands. The city lights shimmered on the water, and the warm breeze carried the faint scent of flowers. She thought back to the dark days when she felt trapped, powerless, and underestimated. But those days were over. She had fought, strategized, and emerged stronger. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "This is my life now, and I will never let anyone take it from me again." Her phone buzzed with a notification from her publishing house. A shipment of her first new collection had arrived, ready for distribution. Smiling, she turned away from the balcony and toward her bright, promising future. Life had changed, and she had embraced it fully, financially independent, emotionally free, and pursuing her dreams without compromise. If you enjoyed Olivia's story and her journey to reclaim freedom and self-worth, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring life stories. Every story reminds us that courage, patience, and truth always triumph. Don't forget to comment below your thoughts and experiences. You never know who you might inspire.